Welcome to the Improvising Life podcast, where we explore how life can be more livable. This is Lori Crawford, your host. In this episode with Dr. Alexis Edwards, there's just some brief context I want to lay out because we do talk about human design. And so if you're not aware of that, human design is essentially a energetic blueprint of what an individual's energy is, and it's a combination of the Kabbalah, the Tree of Life, a chakra system, variation of the chakra system, and astrology. And so whenever we're mentioning something like being taste cognition or a 6 line or a 3 line, those types of references are about human design. Other than that, there's a lot of energy language interwoven in this episode. So if there's any other sort of literacy moments that you're needing after you hear this, you can totally reach out to me and ask those questions so that way we can make sure you're getting the most of this conversation. Without further ado, here is our episode. Healing Doesn't Have to Be Heavy with Dr. Alexis Edwards. Hello, everyone, and welcome. We have such a fantabulously sparkly purple, amber, just all of the colors that make you be like, whoa, guest today, Dr. Alexis Edwards. I like to introduce people with how I feel their energy and what makes me excited about them before I have you introduce yourself. Alexis is someone who, it's someone where you just see them and you're like, whoa, how do you just have that a vibe, or how are you such a mood always without doing anything? There's just something about the way you are you that just has me fangirling half the time, and the other time I'm like, whoa, is that attainable for other people? So it's both parts, appreciation and awe. And Mercuri has thoughts too. Yes. And without further awkward Lori words, how would you like to introduce yourself, Alexis?
Oh my gosh, Lori, that was I think my favorite introduction of me ever. The sparkly amber purple. I mean, all of that was amazing. And thanks for reflecting back how you see me. It's that 6 line life. I'm a 6'2", and so it's that 6 line life. So I am a retired doctor of Chinese medicine. I had my own practice for about 11 years, shifted into energy work and teaching energy work just by life, improvising what came to me, connecting with an interdimensional being, which we'll talk about, Simon, and just kind of going with what presents itself and following my correctness. I help people tap into more of themselves, and I do believe that expansion is our natural state. And so a lot of my work is around that. And I feel that we are all inherently worthy just because we are. And we come in forgetting, and our job is to remember and then help those around us remember too.
I love that. I'm just writing down remembrances. So that way, if they come up as we go, I can be like, oh, I had a feeling that would. Not to prime the conversation at all. But one thing that I did not tell you, well, first, thank you for introducing yourself. I get excited and skip ahead of those things. And thank you for being here. But I did not tell you while we were chatting before that I had Mercuri help me pull a card. I had this remembrance, speaking of, last night, where I was like, you know what? The episodes when I was first starting out, before I started to overthink things, were very much, I would have them be start any way that I would normally do a session with myself or anything, which would be pulling a card. And I've gotten away from doing that because I was, a new mom and rushing and being like, I only have 10 seconds. So Mercury's going to read us a book. But the card that she pulled for us was the Phoenix card. And as soon as she pulled that, I was like, it's Alexis. Yes. So with that, I want to share that through share that. And the message that was coming through, really briefly again, was this, you're saying that the role of remembering and then how that makes space for other people to remember, and sort of that expansion is essentially what life is, right? I mean, those weren't your words. You had words, but they're not in my mom brain. And so I'm just curious to sort of start off with is does that Phoenix energy or how people sort of speak of Phoenix energy, is that something that you would associate with the feelings of your work, or how would you Like if you could pick a mythical creature, how would you want to express that out? Or do you not need a mythical creature because there's Simon? Like where does that
Oh my
yeah,
goodness. I
all
love that.
those things.
Perhaps I'm my own breed of mythical creature. Yes, apparently we are our own breed of mythical creature.
Yeah.
I really love that. So the Phoenix, that particular Phoenix card, so not your physical Phoenix card, but my physical Phoenix card from my deck sat on my desk for about a year. And in
Wow.
fact, it might still be on here somewhere. So that's really fascinating that that's what you brought up, that that's what you and Mercury pulled. The things that come to mind, I always love when it's real time having these aha moments of, and this is why it's so cool to be in other people's energy and all that. But the Phoenix energy is the energy of expansion.
Mm,
Right? It's like there's the Phoenix renews itself, but it's not the same Phoenix as was before.
mm.
It's not renewal in stagnation. It's not renewal and just copy and paste. It's evolution. It's expansion, renewal. You know, it's oh, it's gorgeous, right? It isn't the same Phoenix. I don't. Yeah, it isn't the same Phoenix. Isn't that a cool thought?
It is. And when you shared that, the I saw it visually, but like synthesize it to the words of migration routes came up. Yeah. And so I'm curious, and if you had other thoughts, you know, you can feel free to jump back and ignore me. But I'm curious about with your recent move, right? Recent enough that you moved. Was there this energetic experience of a migration or that route or like following this inner, like in your own Phoenix moment then, and that renewal, that expansion, was there this sense of innate migratory like energy happening?
So I thank you for putting words to an experience that I hadn't fully put words to. Um, I'll start in the back and go to the front, maybe. Yeah. Um, so what's really interesting is that in a lot of ways, I haven't completed that cycle quite yet. So we're going on in August, it'll be 2 years. Now in July, it'll be 2 years when we headed on the road. For context for people, I sold my house. My mother-in-law sold her house. We packed everybody up into a camper, sent 2 pods across the country, and moved from Florida to Oregon in an RV in 2.5 weeks with 2 kids, 2 adults, a grandma, 2 dogs, and a ferret.
Don't forget the
We did.
ferret.
Don't forget the ferret. We did not. This is a part where anybody who's very left cognition or likes things just so will be like, you did what? We didn't have reservations for each place we stayed at before we left. This was on the fly. I did that each day. The experience of moving across the country, I'd never thought of it as migratory pattern, but that's exactly what it was. It was one of the more intense experiences of my life that I didn't fully expect it to be what it was. I'm really glad that we did it in a vehicle where it could be slow. And I can imagine most people now, especially they get on an airplane. And we didn't because it just didn't make sense for our family. But I feel like energetically, there was something really powerful about that slow move of that migration, where had it been quicker, it would have been different. And yeah, like every aspect of my life has changed. My business went through an immense, unexpected death and rebirth experience. So we're still kind of like trying to, I don't know. I wouldn't say trying. Actually, what I want to say is like we're just in it. I'm just in it, right? The experience of it. But I love that migratory. Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And it very much felt like coming home. I had never been to Oregon prior to coming to purchase our home. So we knew we wanted to move here. It's a whole story. And then a pandemic happened right when we were supposed to be moving because our son we knew that this was the time we wanted to move in 2020 because he was transitioning, he was finishing middle school and going to high school. And it was just that little pocket that otherwise we'd have to wait another 4 years. It just felt really correct to do it then. And this pocket was occurring and we thought we would all come out here and for spring break for this, and it just never happened. And before we know it, it's June. Mind you, I'm about to launch a book, my first book, and we have to either buy a house or this isn't happening. So my husband and I flew out here, having never been to Oregon, having decided just energetically and based on synchronicities, my mother-in-law and I chose this town that we live in, just following the energy, following the energy. And so, quick story, she and I both heard about the town by different people on the same day. So it was like, of course, and it's the
Wow.
Goldilocks temperature wise. I love the mountains. I love snow and all those sorts of things. And she's like okay with the cold because she doesn't get cold easily, but she doesn't like too much snow. So it was like this Goldilocks kind of situation where we're 30 minutes away from the mountain. So we can go play and ski and do all the things, but she doesn't have to experience it all the time, where a lot of places in the country, if you have that, you either have it all the time or you don't. And in any case, all of that to say, choosing this place that was home that I didn't know was home. And when we were in the RV and we were crossing the border into Oregon, Eastern Oregon is very dry and very different from where I live. But it even still, like that song, It Feels Like Home to Me, that's what was playing in my head. And it was just this incredible, like I cried, and it was just like this homecoming to myself. And so the migratory pattern is such a beautiful words to that. And I thank you for that. That's amazing.
Yeah, and thank you for sharing that too, because that feels like a very intimate share, because it is something that was so intuitively and innately led in a world where we're told to have everything GPSed out and mapped out and verified by 8,000 other, people. And so thank you for sharing that way. And so I'm curious with you saying, that you are in the process right now of having this different like business structure in life. How has that evolution brought in space, or has it rather brought in space for life to be more livable?
Oh, ask me in a year. Just kidding.
Yeah.
Um, I love that concept that you talk about often. I think a lot of your message is about like making life more livable, right? And not just livable, but livable in the sense of enjoyable, I think, right? And satiating and satisfying and feeling successful, whatever those signatures are for each person, right? Like that yumminess of life. Um,
As Mare burps and laughs. No,
yeah.
I'm glad there's this pause, because when you said the satiary and yumminess, a Lori question came through of like, ooh, what seasoning or spice do you feel like is being sprinkled in your life the most right now? Because we're both taste cognition. Like
Oh my
what
gosh.
palette do you feel like you're navigating, and how does that feel in your body?
Oh my gosh, I love you. That's a great question. That's really amazing. So what if I just answer with what came in, the spice that came in is cinnamon.
Mm.
So I'm just going to go with that rather than overthinking it and deciding on something else. But I yeah, cinnamon.
Mm.
Mhm.
And how does that feel in your body? Like it does it
Warming.
pass your sacral?
Mm, yeah. Yeah, it's funny. It's like a solar plexus kind of sensation. Um,
I'm getting the imagery that you are a cup of tea, like something that's warmed with cinnamon, like you.
I love that. That sounds very cozy. So for our human design people that might be listening, I am hot determination and taste cognition and mountains environment. So yeah, it's all those things, that coziness. I love that. Yeah. And back to like that original question, taking that cinnamon feeling, like, yeah, with life, the transition and the being here and the in this phase of life I'm in is absolutely, it has created more coziness. I think that one of the things that I've noticed lately in this experience has been very much that we put the meaning to our life. We decide that it's livable or not. And there are lots of systems of oppression. There's lots of things that we don't like. There's lots of things that are put into place on purpose, energetically, spiritually, physically, right? But we're the ones still in the midst of that. We still get to choose. We really do. And that even when life doesn't give us exactly what we wanted. So like moving out here, you have, anytime you make a big decision, you do it because you have a certain image in mind, of course, right? No matter whom you are, no matter how faith driven you are, like if you're a being in a human body, you're like creating some sort of expectation. And it's interesting, like when our expectations don't match, but then having the space to like think about where's the juiciness in life and like where's that coziness. And absolutely for me, my life being livable is about that cozy energy. Again, you know, you look at my human design, and of course, that's why I think about it that way. But is my life cozy? Does it feel like I can snuggle up to it with a good book? You know, and I do feel like this transition in the midst of all the has done that for sure.
I had muted just so we could hear you, but yeah, Mercury is loving what you're saying. She has been like,
Oh,
yeah. So you have a hype person over here.
I
And
love it.
funny is I could feel her sacral get excited when you were talking about cinnamon. So, so you got your fellow sacral being, yeah, energy. And with you sharing that, you know, I remembered by oh yeah, we're eating pens. Lots happening on this episode. I'm remembered that your work right now, there seems to be this sort of the seasoning that I feel like you're putting on your messages that are coming through you, and perhaps with Simon. I don't want to speak for you or Simon, but how I'm receiving it as
Mhm.
a groupie and a patron of your wonderfulness, is that there's this idea of like vibration and vibrationality and sort of and I think perhaps you can have a literacy moment for us and just share out your thoughts on the relationship between vibration, expansion, and that remembrance. So like are those three things dancing or like what's happening there?
I like that. So vibration, expansion, and what was the third one?
Remembrances.
Oh, I love that. Okay. So, I mean, everything is vibrational. We are vibrational beings. We live in a vibrational, all of the things. And it's not just a vibrational universe or a vibrational dimension. All dimensions are vibrational. And that's probably the one thread that ties us all together. Um, it's interesting that you shared like with the Simon and I piece of it all, and like the messages that come through is like that connection with him, like him as a vibrational being only and not having a physical body at this time, right? Um, is really interesting to me. So I want to start by saying, like, for me, a big part of what we're here to do as beings is to heal. I read this morning someone saying that, let's say, how did it go exactly? She was not positive to the idea that we continually heal. She feels like you heal and then you're done and then you get to live vibrantly. And healing can coexist with living vibrantly. Healing does not have to be a heavy thing. And in our culture, we think of it that way. Or I feel like healing is part of expansion. It's a big part of it. It's what allows us to move forward. Maybe what's sometimes stuck in our memory as beings is when healing doesn't go correctly, like when we have like things like inflammation and where it's the beginning of the healing process and it gets stuck somewhere in there. And in the healing, a big part of our individual healing helps us collectively because it creates more space. And in that more space, it is changing the vibrational signature of a thing. So where we can distill out all of the liquid gold of an experience. So it's not about a particular experience. Well, I'll just look at the bright side. Some things don't have a bright side, but everything, there's something to be distilled from everything. And that is often energetic, not always actual. And I think we can kind of get stuck there, like where we can think about something awful that's happened to us. And it's like, well, that was awful. What are you saying? It was good? Well, no. But on a vibrational level, that can be transmuted, right? And in that transmutation, it creates more space. And in that space, we have more expansion. I love that you added this piece in with the remembrance. And when you say it and you ask me, do they dance together? Absolutely, they dance together, because it was interesting when you asked me to introduce myself. I've never spoken about it in terms of like that remembrance together, but it just makes so much sense, because when we clear out space, we're healing, we make more space. What are we making space for? In my experience, both in my person and also in working with thousands of people, it's that what they're creating space for is more of your own soul to come in And that's where we become more soul led. This is why we like live and we're often so confused. And part of that confusion is that separation. And part of that, that forgetfulness is that separation from ourselves. Right. And so as we're healing and creating more space for our soul to come in, for our beingness to be in our essence, to be more inside of the marrow of our being, right? We do remember more because our soul is what remembers. And as we remember more, I feel very strongly that in the epoch we're in human evolution, it's, can we live in these bodies and also remember our soul and remember the agelessness, can remember our own expansion, right, at the same time.
I love that so much. And something that was coming through was this. So when you're sharing out that in the healing process, you create room. I saw this visual of, when you have a physical, like a literal room that's bigger, you can do more twirls. So I was seeing this little girl figure, like in a dress, like, the type of dress where you'd be flowing and like, look at me twirl, right? There's more room for that. And in that, it's like the dress was creating like vibrational ripples, right? It's like when you have more room, there's more room for that resonance to come through. And you shared out with, like, I would say much more like beautiful language, this idea that I sit with really often that I call shit shifting. It's that process of, I say we all have a shit mountain inside of us, right? We don't realize how crammed in it is with all this energetic residue, from the time our grandma didn't let us eat dinner, or at the big kid table when she said we could, and then we're mad and we don't know we're still mad at that. So then someone cuts us off and we think we're mad at them cutting us off, but it's really that build up pressure and that anger sort of channel, right? And so I really love the way that you're sharing out, essentially it's like, as we can sort of excavate out the residue that doesn't belong in us or doesn't have to only stay in us any longer, there's literally more room for us to arrive in ourselves. Right. Yes. And this message that came through a week or two ago for me was that adulting is so difficult because we've been trying to only do it from this mental space, because that's the expectation, right? But when we get our body and our spirit, to even allow them to have the microphone for a moment, suddenly that is the sort of first step, or a continual step that, what if we have access to choosing where we can make room for ourselves, right? And so I really appreciate how you were sharing all that, because it's a really beautiful, like it was just like a beautiful Bob Ross painting of these little like bits and morsels that I've been sort of chewing on, but shared through this really like beautiful, only a 6 line could share, lowering out the goodie basket out of the window, like, here, get a treat. I'm just like, I've literally am feeling like my mouth. I'm going to take a sip of I'm called it Foffee because it's decaf coffee, so it feels fake, but.
Oh, I like that a lot.
Yeah, because it's like, my palate was just like, there's something there. Things only taste people get. And so one thing that I had written out on that, on my notebook that I was sharing with Alexis before we started was, it was when I was sharing the Phoenix card, that there's some things I used to do to begin episodes and I love doing it. And I'd forgotten to do it this one, but I wrote out the 6 tools of improvising. And I wanted to give a moment for us to have sort of like a divination moment to see which one to bring in to start to play with. Are you okay with that?
I love that.
Okay, great. So we're gonna left-handed. I'm just gonna start when I say I'm starting, just doing any kind of shapey design and whatever one it lands near. Other times I'd flicked a paperclip, but I realized a baby and paperclip, that didn't really sound safe. So we're gonna do a different one. So I'm gonna go ahead. Okay, and I'm going now. And then you just tell me when you want me to stop. Okay, we went right to 4, which is ID the ship. And that tool is all about identifying and really getting into the like onion layers of the relationship you have with something. So I think of it as like most of life, we have situationships where we're like not allowing ourselves to see things are interconnected. But when we're able to have the space and the awareness, we can see that we have relationships with everything. Yeah. So through that lens, of IDing the relationships, right? Or the situationships, like do you feel, this question's coming out clunky, I gotta let it. I have to make room for it to come through. Do you feel that there's a certain area in life right now, as you're like in this process of this phoenix evolution, this mutation, this, migration, where something is more of like a situationship than, let's say, you would be ideal or what you would want? And how are you able to be gentle and kind to yourself while you're in that liminal space before it shifts to relationship mode?
Oh, I love that so much. And I love it because I am a sacral being and I am here to respond, and I can have an idea, but I'm not supposed to take inspiration and initiate it. I am here to respond to it. So when I'm unsure of something, is it time to speak on something? Is it not? What do I do? Is it too intimate? And here I am with you, and you are giving me something to respond to. Yes, absolutely. Of course, that's the one that came up. And for me, it is very much financial, and it's money. And I love this lens of it all, of the situationship before you come into relationship. And one of the things I've been playing with was coming into relationship with money. But when you're still in a situationship with it, you can't really be in a relationship. It makes me think of like, if you're dating a guy, but it's still like, it's complicated is what you would put on like the Facebook thing or whatever, rather than a definition. Like there's not a definition to it yet. It's like really abstract, and like there's still maybe like booty calls in the night to, like that kind of energy, which is so interesting. So yeah, I definitely.
Well, I'm giggling here. I
That's
really
great.
then want to ask and ping your sacral for a second. What booty call messages do you want money to be sending you right now? Like, what do you want to pop on your screen where you're like, woo?
I think that's the moment for like, that's the Prince song, right? Like when I think about you, oh man, that's so good. Oh, I love it. Like maybe that's the booty call answer, right? Like that song is like, when I think about you, I touch myself. I love that. I think like the concept of like it being mutually desirable. Oh, it's so good. So we're like off on a line here, right? But money is part of life, and all of the things. And it's something that we're really taught not to speak on, and to like be hush hush. And it's interesting because it becomes one of the primary mechanisms of control across, and it creates hierarchy, and it creates, caste systems, and all of these sorts of things, this one little thing. But with it makes me think of like, it's not a one-sided relationship. Yeah, it's fascinating. This we think about it like, oh, I want money. Oh, I want this. The what's money like? How is my money story on all this stuff? And like, what if we were to think about money, thinking of us like, well, what's my Lori story? What's my Alexis story? It's like kind of funny if we were to flip it like that.
I love this. Like, this is why I wrote down remembrances at the beginning, because that is the feeling of a full circle moment. And I just like love full circle moments. I call them singularities. It's my own sort of process for manifestation that accounts for the shit we don't control in the world that we live in, right? But with you saying control, I would just written down literally as you were about to say control, something that I use to help me in that liminal space between situationship and relationship is something I call the control to connection pivot, right? And so like, how can we just notice we're in that place of control and how that doesn't leave room for us to twirl, right? At that point, we don't have our tutus on. We can't really get that in the room. And what was funny is before I wrote down that, I'd written the word consent and you wrote that because I had this, I think it was a few episodes ago, I was soundboarding and this idea came out of this realization that, how are we including our bodies in the consent process and what we do, right? Especially for now, like, I had changed my diet a lot to take the more intentional care of Mercuri, since I'm breastfeeding. And with that too, it helped me realize, oh, wait, it was easy for me to make these changes because it was involving her health, but how have I not been letting my body consent to the ways that I've been taking care or not taking care of it before? And so just really with you sharing that, like, I just wanted to share that came through too with like and then you got to the point of how money would be like, oh, what's the Lori story, right?
Yeah,
Alexis story. But it is like, how are we asking money to give its consent and what we're doing with it, whether that's believing in it, whether that's how we're recirculating it, what, and so I don't know if that spurs any other thoughts for you, but I just love the fact that as I was writing things down, you were then like weaving those parts together. And it was, those are the things I like to nerd out on. I'm like, wow.
I love that. Yeah, you can't make this stuff up. It's so beautiful. Like when we interweave, when we connect energies, with each other in our neutrino fields, and while neutrinos are coming at us and we're like exchanging and all these things, and having this beautiful being with us, this little Mercury here, adding in all her stuff, right? Yeah, it's really incredible to me how we just exchange information, right? And like that, coming back to that idea of like situationship and relationship, and I am totally on board with that idea of like we are in relationship to everything. And actually my third book is about being in relationship to everything, interestingly, of course. But it feels like an invitation for all of us to deepen into the idea of what relationship actually is. So even if we like tune into, oh yeah, we're in relationship with everything, this doesn't mean just us. So like, because our beingness, our consciousness looks out of these eyeballs or senses out of these ear holes or whatever it is, that how our primary mechanism of experiencing the world, because we aren't all seeing beings, or hearing beings or whatever. Recognizing our beingness, we are inherently self-centered. Self-centeredness is not incorrect. Self-centeredness is just an explanation of how we experience the world inside of oneself, outward, right? And it's the recognition of like when we're in relationship, whether like if we have an intimate partnership or with anyone, it isn't just us to them, it's them to us as well. And it's so easy to only look at the us to them, us to them, us to them with everything. My relationship with this sweater, my relationship with my kids, my relation, my. And while that's really normal and natural as a beginning point, because we have this experience on purpose this way, like as a differentiated beingness, but invitation to look at the relationship on the other side. And like, no, we can't quite put ourselves in someone else's shoes, but can we allow the lens to flip a little bit of just the idea that there is another lens, that other being or that other thing or whatever it is in relationship to us as well. So like that money part, like money is in relationship to us too. Why would it not be? Because we decide that it doesn't have a level of consciousness that is like, it's like, why wouldn't it? At what point does there stop being another side to it? So only people who can talk to us have the other side? Well, so it just is really, if we're in the synergistic relationships with anything that we engage with, it's an invitation to look at that side of it as well, the other side of it.
No, I so appreciate that too. And this curiosity came through of bringing this back to the Phoenix energy, right? So if we think about if we're in this ashen state, what other things might we be in relationship with that sort of, that word fertilize wants to come through, but almost like helps us reconstitute ourselves so we are that other Phoenix? Because I'm curious about whether we at some point in life we are experiencing sort of a very similar Phoenix moment, because there's something that hasn't been shifted to allow that expansion, right? So it's almost like we might have like 2% more capacity that we're experiencing in a moment, but like what things could we be in relationship with that might allow like 50% more, and the numbers are coming through, but it's really, again, I'm seeing that visual of like how many layers of our tutu can we get, like how many ripples can we dance around with, and like what would that relationship look like?
Yeah, I love that. Well, especially, and that's again where we're, not all of us, but many of us are made to look at one thing at a time. But then as we look at one thing, we can then layer it on. And so looking at this idea of our expansion and our healing and creating more space and like that evolution of the Phoenix, and in turn also recognizing that the evolution of the Phoenix then alters and magnifies and expands the way that evolution of the Phoenix interacts with and is in relationship with all the things. So it's a different sort of relationship. The more that we have that totality of us, when the more of our essence is coming through.
Yeah.
So,
And I just heard like audibly the question of like, do we even realize we're the phoenix? Like, how many times do we not? And you had mentioned this too, where it's like, it's not about bypassing and saying that everything shitty that happens has to have some silver lining or greatness, but can there be space to be able to have maybe events before that or after that, just room for some other thing to exist within that frame of reference? And then how does that allow there to be that connection to that phoenix energy, right, where it doesn't have to only be about one central moment that doesn't feel supportive or even like redoable, right, where it's like, I don't want to have to experience that again, but what else can be happening that's part of this evolution or this migration?
Yeah, I love that. So we're talking about all these things, and I received an email that's entitled "Open to Money," which feels very appropriate to share. Yeah, it's really, all of that is so beautiful. So beautiful. Like, do we recognize that we're the evolving phoenix? Do we recognize like all these pieces? Yeah.
And and that brings me back to what you had said earlier around the 25-minute mark. So I've guesstimated, I put down, I was like, oh, I want to revisit that. But this idea that healing doesn't have to be heavy, right? And so I'm really, someone once said to me that after like a mini session with them, that my energy and how we were playing with these like topics that again were supposed to be taboo and too heavy to talk about was like snorkeling and glitter, right? So it's this idea of like, we can go deep, but it doesn't have to be dreadful. And so do you have anything that's coming up, or any just like sort of Alexisisms, if that's like moments where you had your own like healing doesn't have to be heavy, sort of exchange with someone, or just like that just feels like a really powerful thread to what you do. So I'm just curious on whether that ever is sort of like an ember that has that relationality with the phoenix, whether that's a spark that leads you to the next cycle, or what that could be.
Yeah, my brain is ping-ponging all over the place.
And I'm not great at asking yes, no questions for sacral beings, because I don't know what's really coming out until I start talking. And then I'm like, that was not a yes or no question to help you.
Oh, that's okay. That could be part of what happens. Let me anchor into what we're saying, because my brain has tapped out for the moment. You're going to have to remind me, what are we talking about?
Actually, I want to do something slightly different since your brain tapped out. I'm just going to talk to your body. Is that okay? Because
that sounds great.
Great. All right. So I'm going to ask your spleen, that spleen energy, right? What relationship do you feel? No, like, let me do a yes, no, even though it's your spleen. Does money feel like a relationship is accessible within the next year? Okay. Now, solar plexus. What big emotion do you need to name to be able to have that relationship be accessible?
Oh gosh, shame for sure.
Okay, so shame. Now we're gonna take it to your throat. If you could have one go-to word that you yell out, whether you're in a space where you want to yell or just in your head, that you yell out when you're feeling shame, what word can you use to help get that energy moving out of your body? Like, you could barf it out. What word?
So weird, because I don't think I've ever used this word, but it's more like a kid sound. It's ooga booga.
Perfect. All right. So now when you're saying ooga booga, how can that connect to your root? So asking your root, what movement or practice do you want to re-anchor then into your body after you've declared out ooga booga and your shame can start to float away?
Oh, my little completely open root.
How about just mirror it right now? Do a body movement. No one will see it except for me, but okay, perfect. I will articulate. So that's a nice little shimmy. To me, that's that booty call sound, right? That song.
Oh, I love that. I think we really like this. I think that this is something we need to invite people to do too, because I know that this themes of like money and all this is like relevant to most humans, right? Is like booty call money, and money wants to booty call you. I love it so much.
Yeah, and so you just had your nice little like wiggle. It's like an accordion sort of shake, or like a slinky, right? So what's the place that we haven't gone? Okay, so last we'll go to your heart center. Whenever you Mercury is like, I'll just clear the energy for you all. So after you've done your shimmy, you've ooga booga'd and you've done your shimmy. What type of hug would you love your heart to be able to receive you in? Like, do you want it to be like a one arm, a side hug, a full on embrace, a high five? Like, how do you want to like celebrate yourself for shifting that energy?
Oh, that sense when either someone is larger than you or you are larger than another person, and that like complete like tucking in that's unique to that size differential.
Yes, like you want a cocoon hug. I call that
Yeah.
cocoon because Nate's 6'5".
It.
I'm 5'10", so I'm not that small, but like when my head fits in his shoulder pocket, I call it the cocoon.
Yeah. Archie's tall too. Yeah.
Oh,
so
goodness.
it's that, and that's what I felt like, that sensation of like, that's, yeah.
And I'm curious then, so we just took that through some of the places in your body. So now that there's even, and it's not even about our mind remembering or having space for that, our body will have those remembrances later when they happen, right?
Right.
So by going through that little practice there, which we just totally threed and made up, and thank you for daring to go through that with me. You're it's now, so you've created a larger room to spin in, right? Mm-hmm. You can do more twirls. Like that was shit shifting. That was making room for the different like council members in your body, right? The different people who have microphones to be able to shout or not have to shout, right? So loud over your brain. Now when you ooga booga, your throat's like, oh, you can tell she has her throat defined. She is loud. Yeah, what else? Your throat knows it doesn't have to shout over your head. And now your spleen knows it can start and be like, I do have this shame, or, I do have this feeling that relationships can happen. Your solar plexus can name it shame and do all of that.
Yeah. She's all about it.
Clear it all out. She's like, you're going to feel renewed. This is her new favorite thing too, which is so funny she just started it last week. So it hasn't been doing it. An episode, but that type of, so like what we just did and played around is a really loose informal practice that I do that I would just call like a shit shifting session. What really is not trying to make your headspace keep on any kind of target, or like, what was the question again? Like, no, like just absolutely just go a different route and just say, hey body, you're experiencing things. It doesn't even matter if your brain ends up sense making what it is. Like, let's just talk to somewhere else, right? Yeah. And it doesn't have to have this objective of getting back to your brain. It could just be like, that's cool. Now I know I want to say ooga booga and get a big self hug afterwards. Like, yeah. And in that practice, we were able to sort of, without having to overtly say it, identify the relationship that we so often have with our minds, which is trying to only like allow that to sort of share out for us, right? Because we do live in a world where that is, and you had mentioned too, is like not everyone is able to speak or see or hear, in certain ways. But I think that's one way we dehumanize others and ourselves, is by only sort of saying that we're only worthy or able of experiencing a livable life if it can be something that really makes sense on paper that we can think through. And and I think that's where we often get really stuck. So yeah, I just appreciate you going on that impromptu play date adventure.
I love it so much, because one of the things that does happen to me is like sometimes, everything's vibrational, which is where we started, right? So of course we're like back to this full circle now towards the end, is everything's vibrational. And so like the way in which, and I also feel like it's important for me to say for anyone else that this lands for, that's listening to this, like as a 6'2" being brought through something like that for you, when there's like this expectation of brilliance. And there is that brilliance, but the way that it comes through, the way that vibration comes through can be different. And like sometimes there's so much coming through vibrationally that our thinking mind, our sensing mind can't always put it in ways that are articulated in an adequate way, at the very least, right? And sometimes it needs to come out another way. And sometimes that's through something like this, where the vibration that we wanted to share with that question that you asked me, that for the life of me, like I could feel the answer I wanted to give because I could feel the vibration, right? And I think a lot of us have that. And then we lose the thread because the vibration is almost like too potent sometimes, and like it needs to come out another way. And it still did. Like it still came through, and like vibrations come through things regardless of the actual like physical language and the words. Yeah.
And so this is feeling in my mind connected to what you do through your expansion principle practices. So I'll have you share out what your actual modality and practice is in a moment. But the tying back to that idea of consent, where it's like, how can we allow our bodies and our spirits to consent to being in what I call that self-ship with ourselves, right? Being part of our lived experience. Because like to your point, and something that we touched on earlier is like adulting is so hard because we're only doing it from our mind, right? But like that vibrationality doesn't have access to our body or our spirit to be translated out or to help us along the way. If our mind is bypassing the consent our body and our spirit might be giving, right? So, we may be thinking like, oh, well, that's not for me. I wouldn't know how to do that. Whereas like our body and our spirit's like, hey ho, like if you just took a break for 5 seconds, or paid attention to your dreams, or noticed all the signs and giving you like whatever that looks like for you. So just along that idea of your full self being, accessible. Any thoughts on that? And then also I want to make sure that you have a chance to share out, really what is your work? How do you do that? How would you like people, if at all, to access you or support your work or do any of those things? Pretending that I know how to hold space for the types of things that bring it, grounding in together to give people a place to go next.
You do. Yeah. So with the first part of that, I want to speak to like this concept of adulting really quickly, which is of much, it's a very large concept, obviously, but just like little morsels. I think that's your word, morsels of, oh, and there you go. It's a taste word too. Morsels of information. Like with adulting, we have this expectation of what it is, and what if in fact it's like this vibrational maturity that we go on this spectrum through, that there's this expectation that there's this moment that we're an adult. I got married and had kids young. I was 22 years old when I got married, and then Aiden was born later that year. And so there was this expectation that I didn't appear to be an adult. On paper, I wasn't an adult, but I was doing adulting things, whatever that meant. And like, it's played a big role in like my experience of what that means to adult, and where it's really like tuned more into like the maturing process. Like it's not so much about adulting per se, but like our maturity, and maturity meaning like an energetic expansion maturity, not in terms of any of the prescribed things that make us adults, right? That if we can't keep house well, or whatever the basic mundane things that are measures of adulting, and like that's just, it's garbage in a lot of ways. And like we can judge ourselves because maybe we don't match those things that Western society tells us is supposed to be adulting. And in fact, instead, like look at this vibrational maturity and this vibrational expansion of ourselves and our beingness, and like not because we're broken. So a child doesn't grow because there's something wrong with it. It grows because that's what it does. It matures into, right? And we continue. And so I think a lot of times we get mixed up with, I know we're all over the place here, but I think this is really important, and it's mixed up with this evolutionary process and like this self-improvement, and these, because our natural state is one of expansion. So as we meet our basic needs, and even sometimes when we don't, we're in a time right now, even when we aren't able to do that, there's this knowingness inside of us that there is more, and not more because there's anything wrong with what we have right now, but more in the sense of expansion for the sake of growth, for the sake of beingness, for the sake of just vibrational integrity, right? It's not because there's anything wrong with us. And it's at this moment, anyone who feels that way, like, let's just eliminate that some more. We don't grow because there's anything wrong with us. I mean, think about a child. Mercury doesn't grow because there's something wrong with her. She grows because that's what she does. So we do too.
I love this. This is like a message, and I love it because most episodes where it's like interview style, and I'm blessed with a guest to share space with, a message comes through that I feel like is just for me. And it was that one. And I saw this imagery of like, what if I get to choose to unpot myself like as a plant, and then, say I do want to go in the garden bed, right? Because and garden bed is adulting, right? Because there is that redefinition, there is that and I've realized in my own work that what hasn't felt good the past few months was only pointing out why life isn't livable. Like that is
Yeah,
part of the conversation that needs to be had, so that way people can put
sure.
words to their experience. But
Mhm.
there's that play, that dreaming, that ideating, that embodiment part of
Mhm.
how all the ways that it can be more livable. And your reframe there of, adulting as this sort of energetic maturity totally has me outpotting myself right now. And so I'm just like super grateful that you shared that the way that you did.
Oh, good.
Super great. Like,
I love that.
I'm gonna like pinch my own cheeks, but it's not the same as,
Yeah,
that version.
I love it.
How can people connect with you if they would love to support you, get more insight on your work, also be groupies? Like,
So we do a lot of different things in a lot of different places. I have a podcast as well. It's called Seeds of Expansion. There's Instagram, which is Expansion Principle Institute. Website is Expansion Principle Institute as well. There's a multitude of ways. There's like entry level stuff. Something that is really, really fun. And if people want to like dip their toe in stuff, is we have the Bardo experience. We do that twice a month. And Bardo is Tibetan experience of the in between. So between death and the next place or whatever, it's that liminal space. And it was named Bardo because in a way we go into that liminal space, but it's a acknowledgement of all the liminal spaces we live in our life. And the Bardo experience is channeling with Simon, who we've mentioned him quite a few times. I think we should give people a little bit more information. So Simon is a transdimensional being who I channel with. And so I channel the expansion principle, which is an energy healing technology that we use to help heal at the very seed of an issue. And so we have approximately 40 practitioners. I've been attuning people for the last 4 years or so, and they go on to use this in their practices, in their homes, and all of the things. A good 70% of practitioners, of students who come to us to learn the expansion principle, are not energy savvy. They're just regular, quote unquote, people, right? And they do it for themselves. And then before we knew it, they are engaging in it in some way and sharing with others, because healing, like we said before, is like integral to us as we heal, and as we heal others, this is how the ripple effect of like our world actually changing, because I do believe that that's possible, and not just possible, but it is what will happen. It is what is happening, right? um, in any case, so Simon is the being I channel that with. Bardo is the experience where I do a lecture, and then I trans channel. My husband asks Simon questions, and each person who attends a Bardo experience is able to ask questions, personal questions, global questions, whatever kind that they want. And it's really beautiful experience because it just goes beyond. Um, and it's neat because even I will watch it and I'm like, I'm not making this shit up. I know I'm not, but it's also like I'm human too, right? I'm in this body and having this experience. And so witnessing something like that, it's pretty magical. So those are the ways to
yeah, thank you. And
come
I'll also make
hang
sure
out.
all of those links are available. And also, I want to include a link to your first book, since I know that for me as a reader also helped me tap into my own curiosity of, oh, am I able to have any energetic experiences? Have I
Mhm.
been downplaying what I've experienced, thinking that it can't
Yeah.
actually be something substantial or like worth spending time with? And so I'll make sure that that's linked as well, so that way people can get some more wonderful Alexis energy, and also find ways to support you, because one thing I just want to address too is, for anyone who this might be a first sort of experience of people really speaking about energetic anything or energetic practices, that it is a very big, what word wants to come through, it's a heavy lift for the person who's doing it. Like there is something that you're experiencing, like it's work, right? Like your body, and I might be putting words to your experience, but anyone who's doing any kind of energetic modality, there is something that you as the facilitator is experiencing. So how can you be compensated for that with this energetic exchange? And so, yeah, included in that, if there's any ways, like, I don't know if you have one of those, like buy me a coffee links or anything like that, that we
I
can
don't,
figure
but
that.
maybe I should.
Yeah, I think so in your Facebook group, you have such beautiful space holding on Mondays. And so, for example,
Mhm.
something like that, might be a place for people to, myself included, pour into you in that way. So there's something for you to respond to, and you can.
I love that.
We're
Thank you.
demonstrating this for anyone who's a sacral center defined in human design, something to respond to when someone shares it out. Oh gosh, this has been so much fun for me.
Me too.
I really love and have like embraced ending things in really weird ways. So what question wants to come through? Okay. Yes. So can you name a mythical creature that you would like to have a cup of tea with tonight? Can you like make something up, and maybe what features might it have?
A purple people eater.
Yeah, that is amazing.
One-eyed, one-horn, flying purple people eater. One-eyed, one-horn, flying purple people eater.
And this is one of those questions where I just have to I want to know, will they in fact actually be purple? Yeah. Or are they okay? Because one time my sister and I, this is going out there.
Yes.
We had this debate, and obviously we never settled it, where I was like, yes, because they're a purple, then people leader. But my sister's like, what if they lead purple people?
Right.
So from your purple people leader is totally purple. You own that.
However, he might be purple because he eats purple people.
Yes, like the whole flamingo and shrimp pink
totally
thing. See, now you are left with that to chew on. So you got to experience this beautiful whirlwind of a conversation, and now you have something to keep you up at night, which is really always my goal of.
Yes, you're welcome, everyone.
Seeing what haunts your dreams. No. All right, thank you all for tuning in, and we will see you next week. That episode with Alexis was so much fun, and I really loved how she was willing to go in all these like loopy places with me. And so this was really an affirmation of this idea that I've had lately about having this approach. Right now I'm just calling Live with Lori. So essentially these interviews, or really these like mini shit-shifting sessions that I can hear Nate playing Mercuri. That's so cute. That I conduct with someone, and then it's featured in part of an episode. So if you are curious about being in one of the sort of inaugural or beginning episodes where we're having this Live with Lori feature session, please look in the show notes for those details. It's most likely just going to be you emailing me, but I will create a form once there's more of a demand for it. But I would really love to play with you in that way. Thank you so much for listening. As always, have a razzle-dazzle day, and if that's not accessible, put an F on front and have a frazzle-dazzle day.